No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken episode number 383. And breaking today, slippery Starmer launches a disgusting plot to jail British critics of Islam like Tommy Robinson as he pushes through plans for a disgusting Islamophobia law just days after the latest Islamist attack on the West, which is now confirmed as being inspired by ISIS. But a hero has emerged in Australia in the form of Pauline Hanson, the only senior politician not to be booed by mourners on Bondi Beach in astonishing and emotional scenes where she met the family of the 10-year-old darling girl Matilda, who was shot dead.
I survived with my little baby, shielding my 7-month-old baby, trying not to suffocate him. And I just want to say, as a Jewish Australian, thank you. Thank you for what you have done for our community. We feel very left out.
Please don't give up. I haven't given up on my country. Don't you give up. Okay? And I'm so pleased to see that you're safe and your baby's safe.
These are the people that lost their 10-year-old child.
I'm so
We
sorry.
lost our Matilda. We can't tell how sad we are. Like the little bride girl, she shouldn't go this way. She was 10 years old. It's unbelievable.
Pauline, why do you think you're the only politician that I've witnessed in the hours that I've been here welcomed by a round of applause?
That's up to the people to say. I've only ever been myself. I've always ever spoken from my heart, and I believe in my country, and you know, trying to work with my fellow Australians to give them a better way of life.
I'm going to show you more of those incredibly emotional scenes of the woman who must be Australia's next Prime Minister. Yet in the UK, the hard leftists and liberal elites are getting it all wrong again.
I think it's important to talk about the hero of this as well.
Let me read my little bit of script here, because I'm absolutely going to do that.
I think none of us know, please God, none of us will ever be in a situation anything like that, but you never know how you're going to react.
I look at Israel and think, well, that wouldn't be very safe for me or for my family, so I better, I do feel safer here. But now I don't feel completely safe here, if I'm honest, and I never thought I'd ever say that.
Meanwhile, Jeremy Clarkson has banned Starmer and every Labour MP from his pub after the twisted PM admitted he was aware of farmers plotting suicides as a result of his disgraceful tax hike.
Is the Prime Minister aware that some farmers who have terminal diagnosis now are actively planning to expedite their own deaths so they hit before April? Is he aware of that?
I've had discussions with a number of individuals who've drawn all manner of things to my attention.
He knows and he doesn't give a damn. In my digest next, why the West will be lost if we continue to allow suicidal governments like Labour and leaders like Starmer in the UK and Albo in Australia to remain in power. Then analysis from columnist and broadcaster Carol McGiffin. Also coming up on the show today, the political transformation of comic Jimmy Carr is now complete. But is this really a lovey we can trust? And young Bob speaks out after being despicably entrapped by hope not hate in a morally reprehensible sting. We'll reveal what really happened. Then, in the uncancelled after show on Substack, claims Meghan Markle is plotting a Netflix return to the UK for a TV show as Thomas Markle Jr. says his sister's Hollywood career is now over after spitting on and kicking their father at the lowest moment of his life. Our royal mastermind, Angela Levin, will be here for all the latest. You can sign up at www.outspoken.live. We'll be revealing a brand new Greatest Britain and Union jackass at the end of the show too. Here are your nominees today. Prince Harry, nominated by For Ansty. She says he is the Christmas grift that keeps on grifting. Ain't that the truth? Kirsty Allsop, nominated by Pat Bon 1981, who says, my sons have had phones and scooters, Nick, but they love their city and are proud to live here. No need to comment further. This is obviously the latest in Kirsty Allsop's maddening row with Rupert Lowe. And Zach Polanski, nominated by Thomas 3033 for plans to punish male members of the Green Party who correct women, white men, and women both are, or being a white man, are apparently crimes. No wonder they are green. This is enough to make any young man ill. And you might be able to see on the top of the screen as well, although this makes me very nervous, we've got a live counter running of our subscription numbers, because look at that. Perilously close to the 600,000 subscriber mark. I am so grateful for your support. All I can ask is that you please don't make me look like a fool by the end of the live show. We're desperate to get to 600,000 while we are live on air today. So please, can you just check right now? Are you subscribed to Dan Wootton Outspoken? It massively helps us as an independent news show. If you do, just hit that subscribe button. It's totally free to do so, but it massively supports everything we do. Outspoken is a totally independent operation. We have no support. We have no donors. We are owned by no one. So if you could get us to 600,000 by the end of today's show, I would be super, super grateful. If you're already subscribed, hassle your friends. Call your partner, get into their phone and subscribe, because you don't want to leave me looking like a fool by the end of the show. But we are close. There we are. We're ticking up. So it would be amazing if we could get to 600,000 while we are live on air today. Thank you for all of your support this year. But now, let's go. The West will be lost if we allow suicidal governments like Labour and leaders like slippery Starmer and Aussie Albo to remain in power. It's actually unfathomable to me that just 48 hours after an Islamist terror attack inspired yet again by ISIS rocked the Commonwealth with 15 innocent souls, including that 10-year-old darling Matilda, shot to death while at a Jewish beach party at Bondi. Our corrupted leaders in the disunited kingdom are literally trying to make criticizing the ideology that killed them illegal. Overnight, it's emerged that despite previous claims that this would be dropped, Labour is going ahead with the proposed Islamophobia law. No doubt because of the Islamist threat to their power base provided by the Greens and your party hard leftists. As Basil the Great put it, pray for the UK. Dark days are ahead. But something has changed. Not just in Australia, but in the West. We saw it in Britain after Axel Rudagmana bludgeoned 3 beautiful young girls to death at a Taylor Swift dance class in Southport. Our heroes emerged. Heroes like Tommy Robinson, long derided by the MSM and the establishment, but now leading a powerful movement to unite the kingdom. Heroes like Rupert Lowe. Heroes like Ben Habib. Ordinary heroes like Lucy Connolly. And in Australia, there is a new hero, Pauline Hanson, a woman who the Australian state has derided for 3 decades and even sent to prison, like Tommy, but who emerged stronger in the Senate to fight against Islamism and mass immigration using Britain as a blueprint. And she's told me this personally, of what her country must avoid. And there have been astonishing scenes over the past 24 hours because virtually every political leader, including government minister, who has arrived at Bondi Beach and the scene of that atrocity has been booed. Booed and jeered by Australian patriots and the furious relatives of the dead. But not Pauline Hanson, who received a hero's welcome at Bondi Beach in some of the most emotional and spine-tingling political scenes I have to admit I have ever seen. So I'm going to start by showing you the moment that Pauline Hanson meets the family of that 10-year-old victim, Matilda.
This is Matilda's grandmother. We come from a Ukrainian background.
I'm so sorry.
And the grandfather stayed in
Grandfather's there, just so you know, everyone. This is my grandmother as well.
It's the grandfather of Matilda.
This is the people that lost their 10-year-old child.
I'm so sorry.
Matilda. we can't tell how sad we are. Like the little bride girl, she shouldn't go this way. She was 10 years old. It's unbelievable how it's possible in our day and time.
This
It is
heartbreaking.
unbelievable. Very heartbreaking to actually know that you've lost your grandchild.
This is the fault of Penny Wong and Albanese. They allowed this to manifest and happen. They allowed our people to get picked off like sitting ducks.
Sitting ducks. Extraordinary. But true. Pauline Hanson then met another survivor who had protected her baby on the beach.
I just want to thank you. I survived with my little baby, shielding my 7-month-old baby, trying not to suffocate him, but also trying to make sure that he stayed alive while the bullets were going. And I just want to say, as a Jewish Australian, thank you. Thank you for what you have done for our community. We feel very left down. We feel very broken and down, but you're a light, and thank you for everything. Because of you, I feel like maybe I can live in Australia.
Please, with hope together and strong voices in our parliament, please don't give up. I haven't given up on my country. Don't you give up. Okay? And I'm so pleased to see that you're safe and your baby's safe.
Thank God. Thank God. Thank you.
Hello, Warren.
Steps just here.
Ah, there we go.
Thank you, Pauline. Thank you. Thank you, Pauline.
Thank you.
Were you expecting this reception?
No, it's Pauline, it's it sort of vindicates my stance and fighting for my country and the Australian people for so long now.
Now, of course, the despicable MSM, who have spent decades falsely accusing Pauline of being a far-right racist, attempted to push her into crude politics, even at the scene of the atrocity. But she wouldn't go there. Watch.
You said you want to eradicate the hate. How on earth do you do that?
You don't bring in people with their hate. You don't bring in people that are not going to assimilate and respect our culture and our way of life here.
How do you single them out? How do you find them?
This is not the place to discuss it. I have discussed it previously. It's a day that, I want to be here, show my respects to the Jewish community and to all Australians.
But then she was asked this question by the brilliant independent news outlet Rebel News.
Pauline, why do you think you're the only politician that I've witnessed in the hours that I've been here welcomed by a round of applause?
That's up to the people to say. I've only ever been myself. I've always ever spoken from my heart, and I believe in my country, and trying to work with my fellow Australians to give them a better way of life. As I've said, for the last 30 years, this country has changed. And it's not the country that I want to hand on to my children and grandchildren. And the people in this country deserve better than that. We can make a change. We can be united. And I'm fed up with this Labor government under the Albanese government. That is nothing but division that's happened under his leadership. But I want to push forward. We have to, learn by the mistakes that have happened and ensure they don't happen again. I want a united country. I want us all to be at peace with one another. We see many wars and issues that are happening around the world. Don't let it continue here in Australia. I will stand strong with you, and I will speak up where it's needed to be spoken up. And you have to have a voice on the floor of Parliament to make change for this country, just not for the Jewish community. This is about all Australians. This is about our country, and that's why I'm here with Barnaby. We stand united in this, and we're going to stand united as a country together to fight the evil that is happening and this terrorism that's happening, and it should not be happening in our country. And we are going to do what we can to make change, and I will call the Prime Minister out for his failure to deal with this. We've seen it go on for the last 2 years with the hatred that's been spewed in this country towards the Jewish people, fellow Australians, and it's not good enough.
I'm very emotional watching that because I know what Pauline Hanson has gone through. I have seen the persecution of that woman for 30 years. And when I spoke to her earlier this year at CPAC Australia in Brisbane, she told me how much she is inspired to stop what's happened in the UK, in Australia. And I think Australia must make Pauline Hanson Prime Minister. It must elect One Nation, the party of government. But just like here, the system is designed to stop that sort of people's revolution at any cost. But I repeat, the people are waking up. There was another truly extraordinary moment on the scene at Bondi. And I want to show you this. So the daughter of a Holocaust survivor who was shot in the terror attack, did survive, but was shot, directly challenged the corrupted Aussie state leftist broadcaster, the ABC, live on air. Watch.
ABC, I've got to say, will you cut out the biased reporting? Mainstream media, we feel will you cut it out? Will you actually let us have a voice? Because we feel that part of the reason that the Jewish people have experienced such a massive change in Australia towards us. I mean, I'm Aussie. I'm Aussie, you know, and I'm not a religious Jewish girl, but a woman. But since October the 7th, since all the hatred that's been thrown at us, I started to wear my Magen David because I'm Jewish. And if you have something to say, you can say it to me. And ABC, please stop with the biased reporting.
Wow. These are, of course, deeply uncomfortable times for the regime media, which is why anti-white, anti-Christian idiots like Piers Morgan and the tit whisperers at Polanski want to focus solely on one of the heroes of the day. Watch.
Oh! Oh non, gros! Oh!
Yep, totally incredible man. I'm not denying that for 1 second, and he happens to be Muslim. But there were also 2 white Australians who tried to fight the terrorists and were shot dead. They're not being spoken about. But as Tommy Robinson responded to Morgan, strange that apologists are trying to downplay the massacre of Jews on an Australian beach because the guy who grabbed the gun was a Muslim also. Ahmed grabbed the gun because he's a brave man. The 2 gunmen killed 15 Jews because of Islam. Hope that clears this up for you. And I have to be honest, this is something that I am noticing throughout the mainstream media. I think it is a psyop. I think it is planned because I want to show you Zach Polanski, the leader of the Green Party, trying the exact same trick while on the Jeremy Vine show. Watch.
I think it's important to talk about the hero of this as well.
Let me read my little bit of script here because I'm absolutely going to do that. So the horror was this one moment where you see this act of utter heroism by a local fruit shop owner who's called Ahmed Al-Ahmed. There he is. And you will see now this extraordinary moment where he's between the cars. He runs up behind the guy with the rifle, grabs him from behind, manages to somehow get the rifle off him, which is extraordinary, aims it at him. I think there'd be a lot of people wishing he'd shot him there, but he allows him to withdraw. Unfortunately, the attacker then goes back to the bridge, picks up another weapon and starts shooting again. But what an act of bravery, singled out by Trump and others. I think at this point he's already been shot himself in the hand. He's currently in hospital recovering after undergoing surgery for bullet wounds to his arm and hand. There was some interesting kind of disinformation on social media that I watched because it said his name was Ahmed Al-Ahmed. And then people went on to community notes on X and said, no, it wasn't, it was Roger Chapman. So, you know, because they want to make it look as if it's not a Muslim who's done a heroic act. So some weird stuff on social media yesterday. Anyway, what a hero.
I always think none of us know, please God, none of us will ever be in a situation anything like that, but you never know how you're going to react. And to see someone with all that.
And it is great. Of course it's great. But it's so much easier for Zach Polanski and Jeremy Vine and Piers Morgan to speak about that act of heroism that would never have been required if Islamists had not been allowed to take over parts of Australia. And I'm sorry, that is the story. That is the story. But the brave, like ex-Aussie PM Tony Abbott, One Nation's Barnaby Joyce, and ex-Trump advisor Steve Bannon are speaking about the real story, and I give them credit for it. Watch.
Of Islam are not really compatible with life in a liberal, democratic, pluralist society. Strict versions of Islam are not consistent with, for argument's sake, freedom of conscience, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, democracy. I mean, you can believe in the virgin birth and still support liberal democracy. You can believe in the real presence and still support liberal democracy. But I don't believe that you can support Sharia law, for instance, certainly not a strict form of Sharia law, and still support liberal democracy. And I do think that for too long we have run away from these issues with this facile idea that all cultures are equal, all cultures are pretty much the same, everyone's basically a good bloke, and what we've seen is that under the influence of extremist ideas and hate preaching, not everyone is a good bloke, certainly not all the time to everyone.
And the bravest man in Australia was that individual who went, whilst others were taking cover, to disarm the gunman. So it's not about faith, but the culture that was represented in those murderers is untenable in Australia. And the most tragic thing is, I went on last night, there were people celebrating it. There were people letting off firecrackers for it. I mean, we've got to do something. This is untenable.
We do not want to see any of that.
Yeah, we need decisive action, but it has to be decisive. It can't be flipping this off. It can't be making excuses. Decisive action, and people will be judged by that.
I don't think the Prime Minister of Australia said ever crossed his lips that it was radical Islamic Jihad that did this. This radical this interpretation of Islam. And right there you have, and I think they fired for 20-some minutes before taking down.
But you know what I am most enraged about today? Soon, even having these discussions, even saying the things that we've just seen Steve Bannon and Tony Abbott and Barnaby Joyce say in the UK is going to become illegal. And that's why we must fight this evil Labour government. We must fight this Labour government. I want to take you through the consequences of this Islamophobia law, which has been outlined here by Nick Timothy, who has done sterling work on this. He posted overnight, the government has finally produced its official Islamophobia definition, rebranded as anti-Muslim hostility. It's even worse than feared. Activists want to lead race and religion in this way because they want to shut down scrutiny and criticism of what they believe by calling other people racist. If the government signs up to this definition, ministers will be encouraging and facilitating exactly this. As with the last definition endorsed by Labour, this dangerously elites concepts the protection of people from harm versus the protection of ideas from scrutiny, radical identity versus religious belief, actions that are already illegal versus behaviour that a free society should permit. Of course, Muslims cannot be a race. It is morally wrong to hate somebody for what they inescapably are, black, white, whatever. Being a Muslim is about choosing to follow particular ideas. And in a free society, we must be free to scrutinise and challenge ideas. The inclusion of this language is especially problematic. The prejudicial stereotyping and radicalisation of Muslims to stir up hatred against them. First, radicalisation is a nonsense term used to, in this instance, make something not about race, beliefs, about race. We know how this would be used in reality. The 2018 definition said it was Islamophobic to discuss the rape gangs. Of course, those behind that definition would say legitimate political debate about the rape gangs was felt by some to be an act of intimidation. So this is dire. This is completely dire. But so too is the elite class reaction to what is going on. And I want to point my finger here firmly at Danny Finkelstein, who only now, only after Australia, is prepared to admit that we are no longer safe in Sadiq Khan's Islamist London. Last week, when Rupert Lowe rightly condemned the UK capital as a filthy and dying dump, Finkelstein responded to him, "This is utter nonsense. I live in this city just like he does, total twaddle." Rupert Lowe replied, "Patriots don't want their capital city to further become a desolate shithole. Whatever you say, mate." And Finkelstein replied, saying, "My perspective is just as valid as yours, so whatever you say, mate." Yet after the Bondi attack this morning on Times Radio, he's done a total 180. Watch this.
That wouldn't be very safe for me or for my family, so I better, I do feel safer here. But now I don't feel completely safe here, if I'm honest, and I never thought I'd ever say that.
Well, you still don't feel safe here?
No, I never thought I'd ever say that. We're doing the very best that we can as a community to stay safe. I actually, when people sort of turn to Keir Starmer or blame Rishi Sunak, the mainstream of British politics, they are trying hard. I do think we probably haven't taken I definitely think we haven't taken seriously people saying things like globalise the intifada.
In response, Matt Goodwin posted, "Boomer centrism 97 to 2025. Diverse London is the greatest city in the world. Boomer centrism 2025. I no longer feel safe in London." Nick Dixon added, "Danny says he doesn't feel safe in London, but literally yesterday he said it was one of the safest places in the world. If the attack in Australia has changed his mind that much, fair enough, but will he now stop gaslighting others who already knew London wasn't safe?" And the composite guy added, "When the native population says they don't feel safe in London, Daniel Finkelstein says London is one of the safest places in the world. 2 days later, when trying to garner sympathy for Jews, he claims he is no longer feeling safe in London. The double standard is so blatant." And I have to be honest with you, this is the huge problem with the denialism that is going on today, with the tribalism that is going on today. Shame on you, Danny Finkelstein. Of course we haven't been safe for the past 2 years, and it shouldn't have taken an anti-Semitic terror attack in Sydney for you to realise that. And then there's Nick Robinson, the flagship BBC presenter, who yesterday said we should feel great sympathy for the impact, sorry, I'm laughing because it's so absurd, for the impact the Bondi Beach terror attack will have on the Muslim community. Now, when Alistair Hilton challenged him over that, Robinson sent him a DM calling him a disgrace. He's revealed this on X, posting, "Unbelievable. This bloke, Nick Robinson, who made the murder of Jews by Muslims all about how awful it was for Muslims, and I, like many hundreds of other people, called him out for it and called him a disgrace on public Twitter, has DM'd me to say this. I'm a disgrace. What does that make you, Alistair?" Screenshot of his DM below. This guy is paid £400,000 a year of taxpayers' money to read the news, and he's acting like a child and trying to do it privately by DM. I was right. He's a disgrace. Top barrister Stephen Barrett added, "This is not acceptable behaviour. It's not the standards we expect of the BBC. What action will be taken?" I'll tell you what. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No action will be taken whatsoever. And this is why it's such a huge issue that we have a public broadcaster that has embarrassed itself to such an extent that it is focused on reporting on itself after Donald Trump rightly confirmed he is suing the crooks for $5 billion buckaroonies.
President Trump has filed a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against the BBC over an edit of his speech on the 6th of January 2021 in a Panorama documentary. Mr. Trump has accused the BBC of defamation and of violating a trade practices law according to a court-to-court documents filed in Florida, and asked for $5 billion in damages on each of the claims. Last month, the BBC apologized to President Trump but rejected his demands for compensation and disagreed there was any basis for his defamation claim.
In a little while, you'll be seeing I'm suing the BBC for putting words in my mouth, literally. They put words in my mouth. They had me saying things that I never said coming out. I guess they used AI or something. So we'll be bringing that lawsuit. A lot of people are asking, when are you bringing that lawsuit? Even the media can't believe that one. They actually put terrible words in my mouth having to do with January 6th that I didn't say. And the beautiful words that I said, right? The beautiful words, talking about patriotism and all of the good things that I said, they didn't say that, but they put terrible words. They actually have me speaking with words that I never said, and they got caught because I believe somebody at BBC said, this is so bad, it has to be reported. That's called fake news. So we'll be filing that suit probably this afternoon or tomorrow morning.
And while they fight Trump using our goddamn money, the British Bashing Corporation, I can promise you, will continue to wheel out the usual platitudes about Islam, which Leo Kearse has helpfully collated here. Don't look back in anger. Online misinformation is spreading. Religion of peace. Diversity is our strength. We need new powers to tackle extremism online. But think of the yummy food. Not all Muslims. If we stop terrorists killing us, then the terrorists win. It's Israel's fault. We must avoid speculation. The real issue is this being exploited by the far right. Islamophobia fuels extremism. Remove harmful content. The West created this. Tough talk fuels extremism. Poverty, marginalization, trauma, foreign policy blowback, retribution for 18th century imperialism, mental health issues known to intelligence services. And Leo asks, did I miss any out? No, you didn't. But the difference this time round is that no one believes the bullshit they're peddling. Now, Carol McGiffin is here. McGiff, it's just extraordinary to me that so soon after an attack, which is clearly Islamist. I mean, there's no doubt, these were ISIS radicals who became radicalized in Australia. The British government wants to outlaw Islamophobia, wants us to stop having honest conversations about this religion.
Yeah, they've had to rebrand it, though, because they've realised that Islamophobia isn't actually a word or...
No, made up by the Muslim Brotherhood.
Exactly. It's a made up term. So I think they're calling it anti-Muslim something.
Yeah.
It's like, and it would be funny if it wasn't so threatening, because actually if they make this law and it goes through, which it obviously will, that's like saying, okay, these people are completely untouchable. You can't criticize them. You can't say anything about, and I'm talking about Muslims in general. Yes. I mean, you should be able to criticize any religion, any race, anything like that. That's what a free society does. But we're not free. They're passing an actual law to criminalize. We would be criminalized now just talking about this and pointing out the fact that it probably was an Islamist attack. It was an attack on a Jewish holiday, on a Jewish celebration. What could not be Islamist about that? I mean, everybody knows they want the Jewish race completely exterminated and disappeared so they don't exist, and other things as well. Like I think you were saying recently on a podcast that I was watching, they would like to see you disappear. They don't like the gay religion. And now they're completely protected. They're like a higher species. You can criticize me, you can criticize you can criticize any other religion, Christianity, you can criticize white people, even black people you're still allowed to criticize, but Islam, anyone who's a Muslim, you can't say anything wrong about them or you'll be locked up. It's so unbelievable, and I don't think that there's a law the same in any other country in I'm not sure. I'd have to check, but I'm pretty sure there isn't one in the world.
No, I mean, anti-Muslim hostility is the
Yes.
term that they're using. Well, I'm sorry, Carol, and maybe they're going to have to lock me up for it. I do have hostility, actually. I do. I have hostility because I know what Islam is truly about. And what it is truly about is what happened in Australia over the weekend. It is interesting, though, isn't it, Carol, to see the reaction to Pauline Hanson in Australia. And for decades, Carol, she was demonized. If you grew up in Australia, you were taught to hate Pauline Hanson. And they tried everything. They silenced her. They locked her up. There she is at 71 years old, Carol, treated like an arriving hero, a potential savior of Australia. And the polling already shows One Nation surging. I mean, I just wonder if politicians here are going to have to wake up and realize we are turning towards our heroes now.
It'd be interesting to see if she does get anywhere in any election, because that most of the time these Western countries they're run by basically puppets that are installed. So it would be interesting, because I watched a video of Albanese on telly today, and he was, honestly, it was like really, how can you justify? He was trying to justify what happened as though it was not such a bad thing. And then you look at Pauline Hanson walking into that crowd, and people are like, they are treating her like a savior, but she should be a savior. She should be, but will she be allowed to be? Because she's a bit like Marine Le Pen in a way in France. She's got absolutely massive support, so they've had to ban her from standing and given her a sentence. I mean, it's quite sinister, really, the way the global power brokers work, isn't it? The way that they control who runs whichever country. That's probably the reason Britain is lumbered with Keir Starmer, because he's implementing all the actual rules, all the things that he has to do, probably better than the Conservatives did, but they were just as bad. And there's a lot of but people are really sort of blaming Labour for everything. They haven't actually been in power that long, and they have done a lot of damage, I'll admit, but it's almost like they've forgotten that the Conservatives were just as awful. And you're lumbered with these people that are most of the time not even voted for. It's quite shocking, isn't it?
It's truly shocking. It is truly shocking. And I think there is going to be a big wake-up moment. It's happening in Australia. And I hope Pauline Hanson is a big beneficiary of that. Jeremy Clarkson has had enough of Slippery Starmer, the worst British Prime Minister in history, after it emerged that farmers with terminal illnesses are considering attempting to bring forward their own deaths to avoid his despicable tax on that industry. He said enough. All Labour MPs, including the Prime Minister, will be banned from his pub. Here's the announcement. To be clear, I have banned all Labour MPs from my pub except one, Marcus Campbell Saviours. He's welcome any time, and not just because the Labour Party has now sacked him. Remember, Marcus was the one Labour MP who voted against the introduction of that tax. Within hours, Starmer had stripped him of the Labour whip. Adam Brooks, another famous publican, weighed in too, writing, "And at mine, Jeremy." And there's very good reason for this. As the newspaper front pages have made it very clear, Starmer is well aware of the threat to the lives of farmers, some of whom have already taken their lives because of the tax that he insists he will introduce. And I think to really illustrate the point of what a heartless droid we have in charge of this country, I want to show you the moment where he refuses to show any contrition, any doubt, about the introduction of this measure, despite the impact it is having on farmers, leading to deaths. Watch this.
Is the Prime Minister aware that some farmers who have terminal diagnosis now are actively planning to expedite their own deaths so they hit before April? Is he aware of that?
I've had discussions with a number of individuals who've drawn all manner of things to my attention.
Thank you very much.
Do we agree, Prime Minister, that nobody should be left feeling, as Cat Smith has just described, that they would be better off dying between now and next April?
No, of course. But governments have to bring about sensible reform and take
sensible
measures
reform,
which,
absolutely.
But things like anti-forestalling clause, they are not unique to this situation. But on a human level, the answer to your question is, of course, not. It doesn't make it targeted. It is a necessary consequence of the decisions that we've taken. But I can assure you, as you would expect, the President of the NFU has raised this issue with me on more than one occasion.
Carol McGiffin doesn't care. He doesn't give a damn that farmers are killing themselves.
Yeah, we
Doesn't
know.
even pretend to.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't care about the British people. He doesn't care about anyone, least of all farmers. You know, it's so obvious they're trying to destroy the farming industry. You only have to watch Jeremy Clarkson's show to know that, to know how difficult they make it. And now this, and for him to admit that, well, yeah, I have heard that some farmers might be killing themselves a little bit early so they can avoid the taxes that you've introduced. It's horrendous, isn't it? And he's the leader of the United Kingdom. He's the Prime Minister. It really takes my breath away, actually. And it's not just in the UK, you know, they're trying to destroy the farming industry. It's happening all over Europe. It's happening in a lot of places. They just want to, look what they're doing in France. They're killing all the cows again. And the farmers are really, really protesting about it. But no, you never hear about it on the mainstream media. You never hear this kind of news. And, you know, it's really so serious that these farmers are struggling to make ends meet, literally. And, you know, the government makes it harder and harder, and then they want to take it all away from them. I mean, it's despicable, actually. It really is despicable. I don't know how they keep going, and I don't know how Jeremy Clarkson keeps going. But, you know, he said, I think I saw him today saying he doesn't make any money. I think he was talking to Kemi Badenoch, actually, and he doesn't make any money. None of them do, really. But they keep going because it's the community that's important. It's feeding people that's important. But the government doesn't care. It does not care about the British people. It doesn't care about business, small business, farming, anything like that. It's really, it's the handcart is coming, isn't it? And everyone's going to hell in it.
100%. And actually, Carol, you know, usually I stand by that idea that we want to be a society where anyone can turn up at any restaurant. I mean, quite recently I had my own run-in with Joe Allen's restaurant in London, which has gone ridiculously woke and didn't want me and Lucy Connolly and Alison Pearson eating there. And Tommy Robinson ran into his own issues with the Hawksmoor restaurant chain. They actually booted him out, even though he received a hero's welcome from the punters at the restaurant. But, given the damage Labour MPs are doing to this country, do Jeremy Clarkson and Adam Brooks and all the other publicans who are part of this campaign have a right to say, you're banned? We don't want you anywhere near our pubs.
Of course they do. Of course they must have the right to do that, and they have got the right to do that. But it's almost as though, you know, the Labour MPs, they probably don't care. They don't care. They don't want to be mingling with real people, do they? So they don't want to go to those kinds of pubs. And it's great that Adam Brooks and Jeremy Clarkson are putting it out there that they've banned them all. and because, you know, it will please a lot of punters and they'll get more punters in their pubs. So if you know there's not going to be a Labour MP in there, you'll probably go in that pub, won't you? So, you know, I think it's a really good thing, and I'm not sure it's going to make any difference because I'm not sure Labour MPs really are pub people, are they? They're a little bit they're all champagne socialists these days, aren't they?
Totally. They go to a wine bar, darling. You know, they don't turn up at pubs. They hate pubs. They look down their noses at pubs. Look at Emily Thornberry and how she treated people who were flying the St. George's Cross flag. Do you think Jeremy Clarkson, Carol, could be our Trump? I mean, he's flirted with this idea of entering politics in some way. Of course, Badenoch wants it to be within the Conservative Party. He's tended to support the Tories in the past. He has suggested that he could run against Ed Miliband, the ultimate enemy of farmers. Is he the guy? Is he the dude who could do it? Is he our Trump? Do we need someone like that from outside the system who is a true force of personality and a household name in the way that Trump was?
Yeah, who has worked in the real world, and Jeremy Clarkson has done that. I would love it. I would absolutely love it, because he is a bit like Trump in that sense that he really doesn't give a toss what anybody thinks about him, and just like Trump, he clearly doesn't. So it would be good, but farming's hard enough. I really don't think he would ever go into politics seriously. But I would love to see it happen. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it would be great. I really do. I think it would be great. Okay, let's just do a little check-in on the subscriber count. Carol, this is so nerve-wracking for me. But look, we're ticking up. We're getting closer. So I think we might get there. If you have just tuned in, we're trying to get to 600,000 subscribers while we are live on air. I'd love it if you hit the subscribe button. It is completely free, by the way, and we will keep checking in as we go. Thank you so much to all of those who have hit the subscribe button. Okay, Jimmy Carr. I always thought he was a lovely comedian. Yes, he was caught up in that tax scandal, wasn't he? Which did make him look like a massive hypocrite, trying to avoid tax while at the same time saying lefty-lovey things. Never a good look. But now he seems to be having some type of based personal evolution of his political ideology. This all came after an interview with our friends Konstantin Kisin and Francis Foster on the Trigonometry podcast. Lots of people are saying, we can't trust this guy. Why is he doing this so late? Why wasn't he saying it years ago? Is it strategic? Take a look at what he had to say.
Because there's two things going on. One, we're robbing young people of their dream of being doctors and nurses, okay? Because we're importing cheaper ones from overseas. Right. It's cheaper not to grow them yourself.
Yeah.
But ultimately, what's society for?
Cheaper in the short term.
But in the long term, right, you bring people in, doctors from the third world. If you bring in a doctor from, I don't know, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Afghanistan, wherever you're bringing them from, it's not because they've run out of sick people there. It's not because they've gone, oh, do you know what, everyone seems fine. Everyone's really taking care of themselves here. I guess we should go somewhere. Where are their sick people? The UK, I hear. It's not that. So you go, it's two things. That those doctors are needed there. We need our, to train young people here to do something. And the idea that we go, we're not, and you want to expand that, you go, okay, well, I guess maybe let's take some gender studies budget away.
He's also spoken of the start of a revolution that will result in the replacement of the elites. The elites, including him, by the way, who've worked for places like the BBC. Watch.
I think we're at the start of a revolution.
It's going to be a cheery episode, everybody.
Well, there are bloodless revolutions, and there are revolutions.
How many bloodless revolutions can you name, Jimmy?
Look, it's all, what is if we were going to define a revolution, right? It's the replacement of the elites.
Yeah.
And I can see that in.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
So the elites are replaced. Okay, so if you look at something like the BBC and what they've gone through the last month, you're seeing that's an elite organization, and it is in turmoil. Okay, they're having a crisis at the top. Everyone is. The tea lady resigned yesterday. Everything's gone, right? So, and that's being replaced by podcasters and individuals. And there used to be an elite that ran this country. Since 1945, it has been Labour and Tory, and they swapped every couple of years. But of late, you couldn't get a cigarette paper between them. And it feels like, I mean, we could be wrong here. You know, a week is a long time in politics, never mind 3 years. But it feels like at the next election, those elites will be replaced.
They will. And they must. And actually, Jimmy Carr's doubling down on this, even making an appearance on the left-wing LBC to say the same thing. Watch.
You told the guys in trigonometry that a revolution is coming.
I think we're in the middle
of
one.
What did you mean?
Well, I think if you define a revolution, right, what is it? It's the replacement of elites. And I see elites being replaced. When I look at politics, I look at Labour and I look at Tory, and I think, oh, they're probably not going to win again. And that hasn't happened in our lifetime. And then I look at people talk about gentrification, and they say, oh, Islington used to be really working class, and isn't working class anymore. I don't care about that. I don't care about that at all. I look at the Labour Party and go, that used to be the party of the working man, and it's been gentrified. We haven't seen that tectonic shift in our politics in our lifetimes. That's a huge thing going on. You look at the BBC and mainstream media. The term mainstream media didn't exist 5 years ago. And now suddenly there's podcasts popping up and people are getting their news elsewhere and they're not reading the papers. So it's a very sort of, it's a very uneasy time.
But of course there is suspicion about this sudden transformation. Tristan Tate posting on X, I see Jimmy Carr echoing many of Andrew Tate's old 2021 to 2024 talking points in, quote, new podcasts. It's interesting, the voices that now speak up once Andrew shifted the Overton window enough to make it safe to speak. His opinion of Andrew, however, is very much shaped through the lens of the legacy media, which is problematic. Jimmy won't get set up and railroaded, banned, cancelled for saying the things he's saying. That was what Andrew and I did for him by swimming against the tide. I feel these two would actually get along. And after 20 minutes of speaking, Jimmy would quickly realise that Andrew is not only on the same side, but very much the pioneer of doing exactly what it is Jimmy is doing now. DM's open, Jimmy Carr. Let's hang out. So Carol McGiffin, you've been in this lovely world in the past. Do you trust Jimmy Carr? Is this transformation genuine or is it strategic and cynical?
I can't stand Jimmy Carr, and I honestly can't. So I really didn't realise that he was trying to, be that leopard that's changing his spots, and he obviously is doing that. But to what end, I wonder? Because he's been in that sort of lefty space for a long, long time. And what's happened to his face, by the way? He looks like, you remember that puppet, Lord Charles, with the monocle? He looks like him. It just looks completely different. He even sounds different. He's got like a softer voice. And I don't know if he's trying to fool himself or if he's just trying to fool everybody else that, he might be on our side and he wants to be on the right side of history now because he's changed his tune. But and the reason I can't stand him is because I remember him doing a gig during COVID and when the vaccines came out, and I remember him absolutely pillorying somebody in the audience who dared to say they hadn't had the vaccine, and he swore at them and he told them to F off. I'm pretty sure it was, it might have been worse than that. And I just think, look, you're not a nice person. And if you were being paid to say things like that then, why are you suddenly changing your tune now? Is he being paid to change his tune, to influence people into, well, I don't know, lure people into a false sense of security that there is a revolution going on? The elites will never disappear. The real elites will never disappear.
Yeah, I mean,
we're talking about the BBC, that's going to go, obviously, because it's been digging its own grave for a long time now. So there's no denying that's going to disappear. But the real elites, they ain't going nowhere. They're still pulling all strings, and probably Jimmy Carr's as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it, Carol? Because I definitely think there were tests over COVID, and there were massive tests in terms of, do you believe in authoritarianism? Do you trust the establishment? Do you believe in bodily autonomy? You know, do you believe people have a right to choose which medical procedures they go through? And they were all such red lines for me. And I just want to read what Jimmy Carr actually said. Now, look, it's comedy. Okay, it is comedy, but it was very obvious that he was pushing a particular position, Carol. And this was in late 2021, so he should have known better. He asked the audience who was not planning to get vaccinated because they thought it might be dangerous. When some people, and by the way, those people in the audience who raised their hands, heroes, did so, he delivered this punchline: raise your hand, now take that hand and slap yourself in the fucking face.
That's it, yeah.
So I'm so glad you raised it, Carol, because it's part of the reason why I don't really trust these 180s. You know, we've seen the same thing with Piers Morgan, haven't we?
Yeah.
Which we discussed in detail last week.
Yeah.
And I do wonder if we're going to start seeing a lot more woke celebrities try and rewrite history. And it's a tough one, because should we just welcome people over to the right side and say, this is great, you know, the world is changing, people are waking up? I don't know. It's interesting.
Are they really, though? Are they really coming over to the right side? I don't think so. I just think some people would say anything if they think people want to hear it. And then he was saying the things about COVID at the time, and you know, he said some awful things to people on some of the shows he's done. Yes, he was funny at one point, but I don't know. I don't trust him. I don't trust Piers Morgan. I don't trust any of those people that have done a complete 180 on it. I just don't. And I never will. And I've got no interest actually in what any of them have to say, because you know they're trying to sell a brand, that they're trying to rebrand themselves, and they're trying to resell it. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, they can sod off.
Because the test, you see, the test was at the time. Do you know what I mean? It's like the test was at the time, Jimmy Carr. The test was at the time, Piers Morgan. That's when you put your job on the line. That's when you put your reputation on the line. You failed. People like you, people like me, and lots of others, we lost a lot, but what we didn't lose was our dignity. We didn't lose our reputation in the long term. And it's a tough one. It is a tough one, because obviously I find Piers Morgan's apology to a very difficult to stomach. I actually haven't even seen an apology from Jimmy Carr. And sometimes maybe you do need that contrition. But then again, I'm also not one of those people that just wants an apology for an apology's sake. Do you know what I mean? But I'm glad I'm with you on that, Carol, which is basically, no. We don't quite trust you, Jimmy Carr. We don't quite trust this radical transformation. By the way, Carol, just before you go, a little update. We're close. Look, 599, 956,000 subscribers.
You're there. You ain't got many to go. I'll do a tweet in a minute. Oh, no, look, another one. You got another one. You're going to do it. You're going to do it. How long you got? You got another half an hour.
We've got Young Bob coming. So hopefully we'll do it during Young Bob. So Carol McGiffin, thank you so much. Have a wonderful Christmas. We will speak.
Thank you. Happy Christmas to you too.
Thank you so much, Carol. Breaking right now, a despicable attack by Hope Not Hate on a young activist who many of you will know and many of you will love, young Bob, 17-year-old who has decided to put his neck on the line over the past few months by going out there in public, documenting what's really going on when it comes to big stories like the Epping Hotel protests, and even becoming the face of Turning Point UK at university campuses in the weeks after the political assassination of Charlie Kirk in the US. You don't have to agree with everything young Bob thinks, but you should absolutely think he has a right to continue his work without being attacked. And those attacks are coming in lots of forms, because Hope Not Hate, Nick Lowell's truly decrepit organisation, has launched a sting campaign on young Bob to try and smear him, to try and get the right to turn on him. It hasn't worked, but I'm delighted to say that young Bob is going to be here tonight to talk about what happened for the first time and to expose the terrible manner in which Hope Not Hate tried to destroy his reputation. But in case you don't know what young Bob was all about, I want to show you some of his brilliant work over the past year, which has put him at physical threat. Watch this.
Hey! Don't do that! Listen, don't do that!
Yeah, well, they're running down now. Yeah, so as you can tell, quite comedically so, I've just been beamed in the face for no reason. It was a family, her mother was encouraging it, and I think this is the generation that we're raising. The fact is that people genuinely believe that the next generation of fascists are marching down to Marble Arch for no reason whatsoever, beyond the fact that they disagree with them. I think the divisiveness on the left is more in line with the fascists of 1940s Germany than, of course, the right are. I think we're incredibly civil. We're the ones who kind of evolved civil discourse, but unfortunately, these people here are violent dogs. Beans, that's just the waste of food, and considering the left talk about wealth inequality, I majorly appreciate that fact.
So at 17 years old, you can see why the hard left is threatened by young Bob, why they clearly view him as someone who is going to challenge the narrative and become a force. So that's why Hope Not Hate set out to destroy him. And it hasn't worked. There's actually fury on this from the right. David Atherton posting, there is a rumour that you plied 17-year-old young Bob with alcohol. Can you confirm or deny? Anyhow, covertly recording a 17-year-old under the UK GDPR and Data Protection Act 2018 is described by Grok as a criminal offence. High GDPR fines up to £17.5 million or 4% turnover. Another brilliant young political activist in this country, Sophie Corcoran, added, I'm sorry, I don't care what you think of young Bob or what stupid stuff he did or didn't say. Covertly recording a 17-year-old, a minor, is messed up. They should be arrested and Hope Not Hate should be shut down. Now, it was very clear that Hope Not Hate intended to try and drive a wedge between young Bob and Tommy Robinson's supporters. But Tommy, who has been incredibly supportive of young Bob over the past few months, wasn't having any of that, immediately telling his followers to ignore the Hope Not Hate hit piece. Watch.
I would not even bother listening to anything from Hope Not Hate. What I will tell you is young Bob has already earned respect. He's a young lad who must be under immense pressure in our politics. So to all of our support base, all of our fan base, no one should have any hurt feelings over whatever's been said. I don't really care what's been said. I don't really care if young Bob criticises me. I don't know if he has. I don't care if he has. He's a young man, a young lad, who's put his life on the line, who's gone out there all guns blazing, standing up for the next generation, speaking out. It's very difficult, it's stressful. When you're under stress and under pressure, you're in different situations. I've been there myself. I've said lots of things I regret, okay? This is a young man who deserves all of our support. I don't care what's been said. Anyone with hurt feelings, fuck your feelings. He's a young gentleman who has earned respect already, okay? And he's young. He needs an arm around him, he needs a bit of direction and needs support. He hasn't had support, he's been made homeless, he's been made on his own, and still he's out there for all that fighting. So my words to everyone picking up on this scumbag Hope Not Hate bullshit piece is ignore it. They've gone out intentionally and went...
Absolutely, he is completely right. And by the way, just before we get to young Bob, have to say thank you all for subscribing to Outspoken. And who is going to be our 600,000th. I am honestly so grateful. Thank you for your support. Oh, someone unfollowed. Who did that? Come on, you're trying to make me look like a fool. Thank you so much for supporting our independent media revolution. Outspoken is sponsored by no one other than you, and we are at 600,000 subscribers, and my God, I am so grateful for it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, young Bob, who will be here in just one moment, did respond on X, writing, "I genuinely welcome being proven wrong, but this secretly recorded conversation was between me and 4 students around my age at a local Reform branch meeting. A Muslim student claimed his family felt intimidated by football hooligans during the EDL days. I tried to self-censor and was clear that those hooligans were brain dead. I also pointed out that Tommy has defended immigration and that his Muslim mates have never had a bad word to say about him, something even journalists have found. Context matters. And as a Muslim organisation, is it really appropriate to use clips from a group that tried to supply me with alcohol at 17? Full context tells a different story. There are so many problems with this report," young Bob added. "The recordings don't even include the questions I was responding to, so the context is immediately missing. They've exploited a group of young Reform students, not Reform UK itself, as local branches act independently. Still, it's suspicious, given how many figures around Reform have past links to Hope Not Hate. Using minors to secretly record minors, offering alcohol, and provoking responses to fit a narrative is incredibly dodgy. I've already apologised for crude language, but anyone knows you speak more freely around lads your own age." And this was one of the recordings that Hope Not Hate revealed out of context. Listen.
So Tommy himself, because he grew up in Luton, he shares a sort of private appreciation of Muslims that integrate to this society. However, the people that he surrounds himself with and the slogans he will bring out, of course, invites that disliking. So, for example, the Talib, I forget what newspaper first, but they tried to do a hit piece now through contacting some of the Asian boys at his school. Then they all supported him, at one of the ends. And the reason being was because, they liked him. And I see that a lot of the time, people who can accept the fact that someone's at the right path and others can't. However, when you bring such a brain-dead support base, unfortunately, the nuance gets lost in the crowd of people that are protesting with you.
Young Bob, so great to have you back on Outspoken. I think you're brilliant. How did this happen? Can you just talk us through the circumstances of where you are, who you were talking to, and how you ended up secretly recorded and on the Hope Not Hate website as a 17-year-old?
Well, firstly, there was a degree of naivety there. I suspected that although I'm never going to use my age as an excuse for anything, I think I'm mature enough, not just in my age, to be accountable for what I've done. So I'm never going to say, look, I'm 17, therefore excuse what I've done. But I have inexperience in believing I don't think Hope Not Hate would ever go after and secretly record a 17-year-old, as optically that looks terrible. But what happened was I was invited on behalf, and you can disprove me wrong, surrounding the circumstances of how this was recorded via they're just posting the entire context and also the full audio recording. However, on behalf of Turning Point UK, we're invited on a branch event just to say hi, show our faces,
A Reform UK branch event?
Yes.
And where was this?
I've completely forgot it was somewhere in London.
Okay, so a London Reform UK branch meeting. You were invited for Reform UK and you turn up.
Yeah, I show up, the event finishes and there's a pub attached to the venue. So, I don't drink. I might do as a joke. Sometimes, occasionally, people offer me something like a cider. However, outside of that, I think that you should practice what you preach and, I don't drink. So, 4 lads approach me. They say, look, we've seen you from Twitter. One of the Muslim lads started phrasing questions such as, I'm intimidated by a lot of what I see from the EDL days. My family were incredibly scared. So you can already sort of see why I would decide to word things in that way. Now, psychologically speaking, if you are with, say, 4 lads your age, and you're trying to convince them of something, the language you're going to use is quite loose because it comes from this childishness, understanding that you're trying to impress people. So if you feel offended by that, you can individually come up to me and I'll apologize. However, there is context there that sort of excuses that sort of behavior. But I think that Hope Not Hate going after a 17-year-old firstly demonstrates to President that our work and the work that I've been doing at universities and on the ground reporting on protests is incredibly effective, because Hope Not Hate don't go after people that it's not worth using to divide the right.
They're threatened. Yeah. And I mean, Hope Not Hate are a terrible organisation, but I mean, when they put me in the list of like the biggest enemies to Britain, I just laugh, you know, because it actually means you're a patriot. But I'm just trying to understand the circumstances around it, though, young Bob. So the guys who approach you, so one of them is Muslim, is that right?
Yeah. A Muslim student, and then you had 3 other lads. And again, I don't know who recorded it. You know, someone would argue that you could infer that it could be the Muslim lad because it portrays a certain story, and the Muslim community has been used by the left to vilify the right. But it looks terribly shoddy on the sort of right of reform, because there are people that work within Reform UK who do formally have positions at Hope Not Hate. And interestingly, I actually saw this video come out from Charlie Kirk about 6 years ago, where he was talking to Farage. And he said, one of the things you don't want to do on the right is ever appease the left. So there is a discussion to be had. However, I'm never going to implicate anyone in that. It seems very interestingly, the dynamics between left-wing organizations and right-wing organizations that open themselves up to appeasement.
Well, yeah, because in the past, Reform UK have admitted to using some Hope Not Hate information to vet their candidates, for example. But what I'm just trying to clarify, though, were all 4 of these guys around you members of Reform UK?
Yes. In fact, they were telling me to do so, like joining, you know, inviting me to join Reform. It would be a great opportunity. And a lot of the times, whenever I responded to something, it was a slander in my defense. It's like, you notice how I tried to defend Tommy in saying that, and this was a few days just before, or just after rather, a report came out where journalists were trying to contact Tommy Robinson's friends when he was a student, and all of the Muslim lads had nothing wrong to say about him, and in fact went back to Tommy and saying they're trying to do a hit piece on you. So, you know, I use that in a way of sort of justifying the fact that Tommy Robinson is largely someone moderate and someone who holds to the politically correct positions of the right. And to just give even further context, this is a time in my life where I just came out of homelessness. I was incredibly trying to vet my frustrations. You know, I don't earn anything at all from what I do. I don't get supplied any money whatsoever.
And by the way, young Bob, I don't even think, and I mean, I'm more than happy for you to do so, but I don't even feel like you have to justify yourself. But obviously, we will play the recording, some of them, and you can correct the record. But what I'm really disturbed by here is that, but again, tell me if I've got the wrong end of the stick and there's some other way this could have happened. But is your contention, or at least your suspicion, that a member of Reform UK secretly recorded you and then passed the recording on to Hope Not Hate?
Yeah, like I said, because I'm not privy to the fact that I think Hope Not Hate going to record 17-year-olds, I don't keep a vicarious account of who I'm discussing with. So you could prove me wrong. However, the setting, what I said, all aligns with this date, especially considering they said that this happened a few months ago. So I, within all of my heart, and again, you can say alleged, I don't really care, I do believe that this was at the branch event, considering they said it was an undercover agent. So it seems like they probably have went to this branch event to just collect dirt on anyone.
Just terrible that is a possibility. Has anyone from Reform UK spoken to you about this since the hit piece was published?
No, which, you know, it's interesting because Reform UK are relying on sort of activists and protesters, people who have never come into the political orthodoxy. So they have this interesting role of making sure that the people that they're relying on, the forgotten people, as Trump worded it, don't say anything that could potentially put them into dispute. So, you know, they haven't said anything. I would prefer there to be more of a coordination, including Hope Not Hate just releasing where this was, because I don't really care about the report. If anything, it's quite flattering. However, just for me not being some sort of schizo, I'd prefer them just release the context, which obviously they won't, because it just causes a further fracturing on the right.
Indeed, it does. But unfortunately, that does seem to be where we are for a whole load of reasons. But look, I do want to give you an opportunity to, respond to what was said. So here was some of the recordings they released.
The whole sucking up to Tommy was something they did online to be popular. No, they do it off camera. It's like, who can be Tommy's best boy? I wasn't a fan of Donkey. I know he's security Donkey. One of his friends. He was in a transit van for about an hour. They're all trying to, what do you think of this? No, hell yeah. Dogs. It's like, oh my goodness. I went into politics, I was going to lick their arse.
Nick being leader of UKIP is like me calling myself a captain because I own a thingy.
Yeah, okay, it's got the nice name, but what exactly are you doing? And what exactly is it going to have an effect on?
I was working at the pub after the UKIP rally. I do not attend those consensually. I think they're stupid. I attend those because someone, I have to report on it. Anyway, by the way, if you ever want a successful march, get behind a banner. Everyone thinks there's hundreds of you, and I was like Leicester, London. It's an illusion fucking trip, mate. If I get, okay, let's say there's 100 people at a rally, right? It's not a lot marching, especially down London. Now, if we get all these 100 people behind the banner, the pictures are all going on a photographer. It's going to be directed at the front, which means you can't see the side. Now, if we remove the banner, you can very clearly, because of that banner, see how many people there actually are. Now, Nick's little grift is that he'll have a banner to ensure that there's bigger numbers, and then rants on about things that aren't popular. Like, this is the 10th crusade. Can't even count. No, seriously, I love this internet scuffle about the 10th crusade. It's like you've missed 2. I did a test. I messaged the CEO of D4 on Twitter. He gave me a response, and essentially, a good way of indicating whether you're linked is that if you send the message to the boss of the American branch, he sends it back to your boss. That's linked. I sent a message to him like, this organisation is undermanaged, underfunded, and will not go anywhere. It's under improper leadership. They sent me a message agreeing with the statement. The first turning point that I ever went to was when the Palestinians was marching down the cenotaph, and we decided to do an Israeli march where we were all holding Israeli flags, and we were in the middle of East Heligen while they were all marching around us. We had bottles shoved out us. It was quite wild. But then we had Nick, and this is why I know Nick's insane, because he had a speaker who was walking at the front, so away from the crowd, screaming, "This is a crusade! You're absolutely crazy."
So, well, I mean, to me, it's just chat. I mean, I don't really think they've had some huge gotcha moment, but I mean, is there anything you want to say about that? Have you had, obviously, Tommy Robinson has already come out and publicly supported you, but I don't know if you've had discussions with Nick Tenconi about it, but fill me in.
Yeah, so for example, right, like I said before, vulgar language is mostly a product of you being around kids surrounding your age, especially considering, these are kids who you're attempting to impress because they kind of give this impression that they want to be a part of Turning Point. So I largely regret the way, and it's incredibly embarrassing to hear myself privately being recorded.
Yeah, but it's a private conversation. That's the point.
Exactly. Really, outside of that, a lot of these comments are either jokes, and a lot of the other things are embedded within it are just simply my beliefs, right? So, for example, the banner effect, the joke I did about that's a tactic also done by Antifa. I think that actually the right started deploying those tactics when Antifa started doing them, because what Antifa would do is more maliciously hide behind a banner, and when the police push against you, the banner would sort of protect you. And with the joke about the dinghy, that's literally me quoting a student, because there's always a discussion surrounding Tenconi being the COO and also the leader of a political party, because that causes a lot of brand confusion. And of course, some people don't like other right-wing parties because a lot of university students come through traditional routes of Reform UK and the Conservative Party. With Turning Point being undermanaged, Yes, of course. I don't receive any money from Turning Point. I do everything off my own back. And, is it for me to complain or for me to do? It's for me to do. I largely believe in what Charlie did in terms of pushing for socially conservative values and Christianity. And he started out from his garage. I'm starting out with nothing. So, you have to build these things up. And of course, a private discussion being recorded and using that for a malicious purpose in that you're trying to divide people is just wrong. Like, everyone vets their frustrations at the pub. If I were to record Nick Lowes when he's privately saying about his colleagues on the left, I imagine if we were trying to take that out of context, it'd be quite damaging on him. However, all I can say is that the language I used would never be the language I used to someone directly speaking to them. I have a great appreciation for everyone in the patriotic right movement, for being activists, for being spokespersons, for helping me out when I was in the roughest part of my life. However, I am allowed to have my own opinions in the same breath.
Totally. It's awful. It is a scumbag move. And so, just to clarify, you remain part of Turning Point UK. That hasn't changed.
Yeah, I mean, I could publicly say my grievances, and I can still be part of the organization that literally pushes for the broad church of ideas. So, for example, I don't like the fact that Turning Point has remained largely a protesting organization. That's why I dedicate so much of my time for it to be based on stands and chapters. I don't like the fact that we largely just rely on re-uploading videos, for example, as well. I don't like the fact I don't get paid. However, these are all things that I can hold to whilst also continuing on and trying to effectively continue the strategy that Charlie did when he was 18. And I think there's a huge comparison there. Charlie was 18 when he started his organization. He quite hilariously said at one annual dinner for Turning Point UK about 6 years ago that he started out buying the table and returning it on the same day because he couldn't afford to actually keep the table for the entire duration of the day. So yeah, a broad church organization can critique itself, and I think the right needs to hyper criticize itself if we're willing to critique the left.
And did you hear from Hope Not Hate before they published this investigation? Are you considering, or is Turning Point UK considering any type of legal action against Hope Not Hate?
Listen, call me principled. However, someone can say whatever they like about me. If anything, I'd prefer it to be kept up just because, firstly, it teaches me a very valuable lesson in not trying to say anything that I would never want publicly transmitted. Secondly, I think that someone can say anything, and I think that trying to sue them based on that merit would be, in my ways, and of course people would disagree, infringing on their freedom of speech. So I'm a free speech absolutist. They should be able to say it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect me. I'm highly above it, as it were, because they're attacking me, because of course they see that my work has an effect on.
Totally. Let's fight out the battle in the public square. That's what's important. That's why it's so important that you grow your own platform, that you have platforms like Outspoken to be on. I absolutely love your work. Keep doing what you're doing. I mean, there is so much to fight for here in the disunited kingdom, and we're going to need the youth to do it. And I think it's incredible. When do you turn 18, by the way? I mean, I can't believe you're still 17.
Yeah, I'm holding on to that because I'm suspecting Hope Not Hate probably has some dirt from even the Socialist Workers' Party. I heard some of their colleagues were trying to go to people in my secondary school trying to sell off information. So, when I turn 18, the gloves are off in terms of arrests. And I'm assuming as well, more beautiful job opportunities on the right as well. However, I turn 18 on the 15th of July.
Amazing. Well, young Bob, you are a force. And you will be a force going forward. And I think the fact that Hope Not Hate stooped to this level shows you how threatened they are. Thank you so much for explaining exactly what went on. I think that's incredibly important. We've got to expose these total cretins operating on the left. And thank you so much as well for getting me to 600,000 subscribers during that interview. That was a real buzz. So I very much appreciate that. And hopefully, the wider point about that is that the independent media in the United Kingdom is growing, and it must continue to grow. And we can be a little part of that here at Outspoken too. Okay, we're going to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union jackass in just one moment. First to your feedback. Mirror8933 says, and I didn't know this, Islamic preachers outside Canary Wharf station in London last night with Islamist prayers blaring out on Canary Wharf Square the day after the Bondi Beach terrorist massacre and only a few days before Christmas. I mean, we know what they're doing. Solarian Unlimited says, not often, this is about Pauline Hanson, by the way, not often you see genuine appreciation of a politician. She is clearly very respected. Papalotopus says, destroying farms, this is in regards to Jeremy Clarkson, destroying farms makes us more reliant on the state for food and it frees up land for you-know-who to expand. And Scotty John says, Jeremy Clarkson would clean up if he goes into politics. From Juliet Johnson, support Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib. We need leaders with conviction and courage who care for the people and not seeking power for vain glory. And on the whole issue of whether we can trust this sort of transformation of Jimmy Carr, Sinclair80 says, Jimmy Carr is just making sure he has his audience locked in for future shows. A smart business move, but disingenuous. Okay, let's remind you of your nominees for today's Union Jackass. Prince Harry, nominated by For Antsy for The Christmas Grift. Kirsty Allsop, nominated by Pat Bond 1981 for her row with Rupert Lowe over London. And Zap Polanski, the Tit Whisperer, nominated by Thomas W 3033 for plans to punish male members who correct women. And the results are in. In third position with 18% of your vote, it's Kirsty Allsop. The runner-up with 22% of the vote, Prince Harry. But today's Union Jackass with 59% of your vote, an overwhelming win for the Tit Whisperer, Zach Polanski. And it's an honorary Greatest Britain today, but she cares so much about what's happening here in the disunited kingdom as well as in Australia, but could be no one else other than the incredible Australian politician, the leader of One Nation, Pauline Hanson, nominated by 231 Understood M, who said, speaking to the victims at Bondi, I could feel theirs and her despair, frustration, and sheer pain. This is the fight of her life. God bless her. And yes, she should be the next Prime Minister of Australia. I think there is a huge political shake-up about to go down in Australia after what happened at Bondi Beach. Okay, we're moving over to Substack now for the uncancelled after show with Angela Levin, our royal mastermind. You can sign up to watch at www.outspoken.live. I will be back with you live tomorrow, 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. You can subscribe to us a podcast as well on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, as you have been doing all day, please hit subscribe right now on YouTube. Join our 600,000 strong Outspoken army. Most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you.